So I brought you a very beautiful passage from a book by Helena Blavatsky, the great thinker of the 19th century. She wrote a book called Practical Occultism, where she speaks of the person who seeks the hidden side of themselves, their deep self-knowledge, the hidden side of life, the profound understanding of the laws of nature, and strives to grow through this pursuit. So she lays out a series of practices that she envisions for the life of a person on such a path. And there's a moment where she talks about what to do upon waking. I found it very beautiful. And I imagine that man there looking out that window might have been doing something similar. Shall we see what Helena Blavatsky says about this? About this morning moment of consecration? Let's take a look. Just look how interesting this is. A prayer for humanity. Rise early, as soon as you awaken, without lying idly in bed, half asleep and half awake. Then pray with fervor, asking that all of humanity may be spiritually regenerated. Pray so that those who are striving along the path of truth may be encouraged by your prayers and work with even greater dedication, and that they may find success, and that you may be strengthened and not give in to the seductions of the senses. In other words, it presents a beautiful way to begin the day, very similar to what he does. Rise immediately, don't linger idly in bed, and offer a prayer for humanity so that you too may grow on this new day. So that humanity may grow, so that those who seek the truth may receive renewed strength on their journey, and so that I too may improve myself a little more today. A question I always ask to my students and have always enjoyed asking, because imagination exercises are a wonderful thing. They allow us to visualize situations we had never stopped to consider before. Imagination exercises are a form of simulated experience. I ask them to imagine something bizarre, something unusual. Imagine that the genie from the lamp actually exists, the one from the Aladdin movie. And you find the lamp, and you are granted only one single wish, not three, just one. Do you ask for something for your own personal interest, or do you wish for something for all of humanity? It's very interesting for us to pause and reflect on what our answer would be. All of humanity suffering, a terrible and profound level of ignorance, man being a wolf to man, as is said philosophically. A situation of extreme deprivation, and I think about taking a trip abroad. Notice how the tone of our deepest desires clearly reflects the level of our consciousness. What would I ask for? Helena Blavatsky says, every time the awakened ones ask, they ask for humanity. Consider humanity your concern. Pray for it, so its suffering may ease, ignorance lessen, and people become more enlightened by the idea of goodness. Pray for humanity. Feel responsible for it. Wish things for it. Don't remain only on the personal, the trivial level, when you have a humanity in such deep need of so many things. So I really appreciate this passage from Practical Occultism, which shows us the ceremonial recognition. And this man, something similar to that, should be unfolding within him, because he places himself in a position of contemplation. And it's interesting, because he doesn't seem like a man who asks for much. He seems more like a man of gratitude, of contemplation. He doesn't seem like the kind who takes every opportunity to beg for personal favors. So I believe that if this man were to ask for anything, it would be for humanity, consecration of the day. So he begins and makes his consecration. There is something fundamental it's learning to before anything important in your life. Consecrate it to something greater, lift it out of the ordinary, give it a sacred character. A task I'm about to undertake, an opportunity to interact with people where there's usually some friction. Something that demands more from you, consecrate that. Dedicate it, make an offering to something greater than yourself. Because when we define and consecrate a situation, we are endowed with an energy 10 times greater. Imagine you're about to take on a task that you find very challenging. Before starting, you think of, say, your father, your grandfather, someone who deeply inspired you, and you say, I do this in their name. Tell me if your energy in that moment wouldn't be 10 times greater. If you wouldn't have the strength to do it 10 times better in that situation. Absolutely. And the consecration of the day is also a very ancient tradition. We should begin our days with that tone. So he begins. As I mentioned, he doesn't seem to be a man of farewells or wishes. It's not something new. And then I included a quote from Helena Blavatsky here, once again, where she says, desire God and not something he can give you. In other words, when you have the chance to ask God to be in his image and likeness, you ask him for a car. When you could ask to be closer to him, you sometimes ask for something trivial, something you could easily achieve on your own, if it's even necessary. So, desire God earnestly, to become more and more in his image and likeness, to draw ever closer to the idea of unity, which is the supreme attribute of God, to come just a little closer to him. This person has a character that is very fitting for this kind of request. It seems very much in line with him, something like that. Continuing on, I brought a passage that the director shared, which I found very beautiful and very meaningful. It's not really new. Plato says something very similar in the Republic, but I found the way he put it quite interesting. Wim Wenders, the German director of this film, expressed it beautifully. He said he created the main character dreaming of him being a great pacifist. The greatest pacifist ever portrayed in a film. Why? Because he is a man who is completely content with his life. And he says that this habit, this addiction that has been instilled in us to always believe that we must have more, much more in material terms, more in terms of recognition of our name, more fame, more validation, it all leads at a certain point to this endless race. This race to have more, and more ends up making it so that in order for you to have more, someone else must have less. And there will come a moment when you will face someone who refuses to give up what they have just so you can have more at their expense. And then you will face conflict. And that is when war begins. That is when the struggle among human beings begins. If everyone were content with having what is necessary for a dignified life, a life with the basics of comfort, the basics of leisure, with everything a human being truly needs, if we didn't have such a deep need for global recognition, if we had the ability to live a dignified life, if we could let go of this addiction to endless material growth, perhaps we wouldn't face so much conflict. Because conflicts arise from this rat race of some to possess more than everyone else. And soon, they will come into conflict with someone who isn't willing to lose that much. And before long, this will lead to war, to violent conflict like so many we see on our screens today. Conflicts of interest. Someone who wants more power than everyone else, wants to have more than everyone else. But society itself is not free from this addiction. You have and you want to grow. What does it mean when you say you want to grow? Do you want to earn more? Do you want to be more famous? Do you want more recognition? This means growing out of our current mindset. If you don't want it at all, you're just complacent. What a life. I want to grow from the perspective of being. I want to become a much better human being than I'm today. Forgive me, but I truly do. I want to push my boundaries as close as possible to that horizon of possibilities I have. I refuse to settle for being only as much as I am. But I mean this from the perspective of virtues, values, and wisdom, not from a material standpoint. If you need titles or possessions to consider yourself great, then the greatness belongs to the things, not to you. You are great because of how human you are, and that, indeed, is a pursuit that is truly worthy of every human being. This race they incite within us only leads to more and more conflict. Plato says the same thing in his writings. He outlines what a perfect city would be like, where, around simplicity, everything necessary to live without misery is present. Then a young man participating in the dialogue, Glaucon, turns to him and asks, what kind of happiness is that? Happiness fit for pigs, living with so little like that. Then he said, oh, so you want people to have a bunch of superfluous things? Yes, I do. All right, then we'll give them those superfluous things. But from this point on, we will have war. From this point on, we will have conflict. From that moment, Humans direct all ambition toward the material world rather than focusing on personal growth. And it's true.
Before you leave the video, we have an invitation for you to take part in an in-person class that are being held at all new Acropolis centers around the US. It's Living Philosophy. Here in US, we have classes in person in Orlando, Miami, Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, Charlotte, Phoenix, Raleigh, with artistic, cultural, and philosophical activities I'm sure you would enjoy very much. And all our schools will have the doors open to welcome you. It will be a pleasure to welcome you, not only here on our social media platforms, but also in person at our centers. I look forward to seeing you there.